The dawn mist clung low to the forest floor when Ara stepped past the last oak. She'd followed the sound, a low, pained rasp that didn't belong to any animal she knew. Her basket swung empty at her side. She'd gone out for mushrooms. Instead, she found him. The wolf lay in the center of the clearing. Silver chains wound tight around his body, biting deep into dark fur. Each link gleamed cold in the pale light, his amber eyes fixed on her the moment she appeared. Ara froze. Her breath caught. She should turn back. Every instinct told her to run, but those eyes held her still. There was something in them. Recognition, desperation, a plea spoken without sound. She took one step forward, then another. The wolf didn't snarl, didn't bare his teeth. He simply watched her with a gaze that felt older than the trees around them. Ara knelt at the edge of the chains. Her hands trembled as she reached out. The silver felt ice cold beneath her fingertips. She could see where the metal had rubbed the fur raw. Blood darkened the ground beneath him. "I don't know if you understand me," she whispered, "but I'm going to try." The wolf's amber gaze didn't waver. If anything, it softened. His chest rose and fell in shallow, labored breaths. Ara examined the chains. They weren't locked. They were twisted, knotted in on themselves like someone had bound him in haste. Or rage. She pulled at the first loop. The silver burned her palm. She hissed but didn't let go. One chain loosened, then another. She worked in silence, her fingers aching. The wolf lay perfectly still. He could have moved, could have lunged, but he waited, patient and watchful, as though he knew she was his only chance. The final chain slipped free. Ara pulled it away and stumbled back, her heart pounding. The wolf rose slowly to his feet. He was enormous, taller than any wolf she'd ever seen, his shoulders level with her chest. For a moment, neither of them moved. Ara's pulse hammered in her ears. She should run now, while she still could. But the wolf simply stood there, head lowered, eyes still locked on hers. Then he began to change. Ara gasped. She took a step back, then another. The wolf's body rippled. Fur melted into skin, limbs lengthened, bone and muscle shifted with a sound like wind through tall grass. Where the wolf had stood, a man now knelt in the dirt. He was broad-shouldered and lean, his body marked with the same raw wounds the chains had left. Dark hair fell across his face. When he lifted his head, those amber eyes were still the same. Ara's breath came fast and shallow. She couldn't speak, couldn't think. The man rose to his feet slowly, as though afraid she might bolt. He held up one hand, palm open, a gesture of peace. "Thank you," he said. His voice was low and rough, like he hadn't used it in a long time. Ara shook her head. What are you?" "My name is Kale." He took a careful step forward. "I was cursed, bound in silver and left to die. You freed me." "I don't understand." Her voice came out small. "How is this possible?" Kale's gaze softened. He glanced down at the chains still scattered on the ground. "Silver can't be touched by wolves, not without terrible pain. But you—" He looked back at her. "You broke them. Do you know what that means?" Ara wrapped her arms around herself. She felt cold, unsteady. "No. It means you carry Luna blood." Kale's tone was gentle, patient. Old blood, the kind that can break curses, the kind that can stand beside an alpha. Her heart lurched. "That's not possible. I'm no one. Just a girl from the village. You're more than that. He took another step closer. Ara didn't move. She couldn't. I've been trapped in that form for 3 years, waiting, hoping, and then you came. Why me? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Kale stopped a few paces away. He studied her face with an intensity that made her skin warm. I don't know yet, he said quietly. But I felt it the moment you stepped into the clearing. Something in you called to something in me. Ara's hands shook. She clenched them into fists. I don't belong to anyone. I'm not asking you to. Kale's voice stayed calm, steady. I'm only asking you to listen. She met his eyes. Amber and clear and impossibly human despite everything she'd just seen. Who are you, really? I was the Alpha King of the Northern Packs. His jaw tightened. Until my own council turned on me. They used a witch's curse to bind me, left me chained in wolf form where no one would find me. Why? Because I refused to take a mate they chose for me. Kale's voice went flat. They wanted an alliance. I wanted something real. So they decided to remove me. Ara's chest ached. She didn't know why. She didn't know this man. But the loneliness in his words echoed something deep inside her. I can't help you, she said. I don't know anything about Lunas or Alphas or any of this. Kale shook his head. You already did. You freed me. That's more than anyone else could have done. So what happens now? Ara asked. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. Now I go back. Kale glanced toward the trees. I take back what's mine, and I make sure the ones who did this answer for it. Ara nodded slowly. Then go. I won't stop you. Kale's gaze snapped back to her. Come with me. Her breath caught. What? Come with me, he repeated. His voice dropped lower, softer. You don't belong in that village. I can see it in your eyes. You've never fit there. Never felt like you had a place. Ara's throat tightened. How did he know? How could he see that? I can't just leave, she whispered. Why not? Kale took one more step. Now he stood close enough that she could see the faint scars along his collarbone, the tension in his jaw. What's holding you there? She opened her mouth, then closed it. The truth was, nothing held her. No family, no close friends, just a small room above the bakery, and a life that had always felt like waiting for something she couldn't name. I'm afraid, she admitted. Kale's expression softened. So am I. That surprised her. You? I've been alone for 3 years. His voice was quiet now, almost vulnerable. I don't know what's waiting for me when I return. I don't know who I can trust. But I know this. The moment you broke those chains, I felt something I haven't felt in a long time. What? Ara asked. Hope. The words settled between them like a promise. Ara looked down at her hands. They still trembled. But something else stirred in her chest. Something that felt like courage. Or maybe just the desire to finally belong somewhere. She lifted her eyes to his. If I come with you, what happens to me? Kale held her gaze. I can't promise it will be easy. My pack won't welcome you at first. They'll question you, test you. But I will stand beside you, and I will protect you. That much I swear. Ara took a breath, then another. The forest around them was silent, waiting. Even the wind seemed to hold still. All right, she said. I'll come. Relief flickered across Kale's face. He nodded once, slow and deliberate. Thank you. Ara didn't know what she'd just agreed to. Didn't know what waited beyond the trees. But for the first time in her life, she felt like she was walking towards something instead of away. Kale turned toward the forest. "We should move. It's a 2-day journey. And there are things you need to know before we arrive." Ara picked up her basket. It felt absurdly light now, unimportant. She followed him toward the tree line, her heart beating fast and steady. Behind them, the silver chains lay forgotten in the dirt. Broken, empty, no longer needed. They walked for an hour in near silence before Kale finally stopped. The trees had grown denser here, older. Their roots twisted above the ground like sleeping serpents. Ara's breath came shallow and quick. She'd never been this deep in the forest before. The village elders always warned against it. Now she understood why. Kale turned to face her. His expression was calm but serious. "Before we go further, you need to understand what happened back there." Ara set down her basket. Her legs ached from the uneven ground. "You said I freed you from a curse." "I did." Kale leaned against a wide oak, arms crossed. "But I didn't explain how, or why you were the one who could." She waited. Her pulse hammered in her throat. 3 years ago, my pack was betrayed from within," Kale said quietly. "A witch was hired, paid in gold and territory. She bound me in silver and left me in that clearing with a lock only Luna blood could break." Ara frowned. "Luna blood?" "The bloodline of pack leaders, mates," Kale explained. "It's rare. Most wolves are born into packs. But Luna blood runs in humans too, dormant, hidden, passed down through generations without anyone knowing." Ara shook her head slowly. "That can't be right. I'm just a baker's assistant. I don't have anything special in my blood." Kale's gaze didn't waver. "You do. The chains wouldn't have broken otherwise. Silver holds wolves. Only Luna blood can release us." Her chest tightened. "But my parents, are they alive?" Kale asked gently. "No." Ara swallowed hard. "They died when I was 6. Fever took them both. The village took me in. But no one ever told me anything about this." Kale was quiet for a moment. Then he stepped closer. "It's possible they didn't know. Luna blood can skip generations. Or it can lie dormant until the bond awakens it." "The bond?" Ara whispered. "Between an alpha and his Luna." Kale's voice was soft now, almost tender. "It's not just a title. It's a connection. Something that ties 2 people together at the soul level. When you touched those chains, the bond recognized you. That's why you could free me." Ara felt dizzy. She reached out and braced herself against a tree. "You're saying I'm supposed to be your Luna?" "I'm saying you could be." Kale corrected. "If you choose it. The bond doesn't force, it offers. But it has to be accepted by both sides." She looked up at him. His amber eyes were steady, patient. "What if I don't accept?" Kale's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "Then I'll still honor my promise. I'll see you safely to my territory. You can stay as a guest, or I'll help you find somewhere else. Somewhere you can build a life." Ara's throat ached. "You'd do that? Even though the bond—" "Even then," Kale said firmly, "I won't trap you the way I was trapped. You deserve a choice." The words settled into her chest like stones. Heavy. Real. No one had ever given her a choice before. Not really. Life had always been something that happened to her. Something she endured. "I don't know what to choose," she admitted. "You don't have to choose now," Kale said. "Come with me. Meet the pack. See what it feels like. Then decide." Ara nodded slowly. That felt manageable. She could do that. What will they think of me? She asked. When we arrive? Kale's expression darkened. Some will be relieved, others will be suspicious. My second, Veyron, will likely question everything. He's loyal, but he's also cautious, and my exile left scars on the pack. They won't trust easily. Will they hurt me? The question came out smaller than she intended. No, Kale said immediately. I won't allow it, and the bond will protect you even if I'm not near. Once it's recognized, no wolf can harm you without consequence. Ara wanted to believe him, but fear still coiled tight in her stomach. What if I can't do this? She whispered. What if I'm not strong enough? Kale moved closer. He didn't touch her, but his presence was warm, steady. Strength isn't about never being afraid, he said quietly. It's about choosing to move forward, even when you are. Ara looked up into his face, the scars along his jaw, the exhaustion etched into the corners of his eyes. He'd survived 3 years alone, 3 years trapped and betrayed, and still, he was offering her kindness, patience, a choice. All right, she said, I'll keep going. Kale's shoulders relaxed just slightly. Thank you. They started walking again. This time, Kale spoke as they moved. He told her about the Packlands, the stone hall where the council met, the dens carved into the hillside, the river that ran clear and cold through the center of the territory. Ara listened, trying to picture it, trying to imagine herself there. What's it like? She asked after a while. Being a wolf? Kale glanced at her. It's freedom and weight, both at once. You feel everything more intensely, the wind, the ground beneath your feet, the heartbeat of the pack around you. Does it hurt when you shift? The first few times, yes, Kale admitted. But then it becomes natural, like breathing. Ara thought about that. About a life where transformation was normal, where belonging meant something deeper than shared space. Will I be able to shift if I'm Luna? Kale hesitated. Some Lunas do, others don't. It depends on how deeply the bond takes root. But even if you don't shift, you'll feel the pack, you'll know them, and they'll know you. Ara wasn't sure how she felt about that. Being known sounded terrifying, but also comforting. Maybe. They walked until the sun began to dip low. The forest grew quieter, darker. Kale stopped near a small clearing where a stream cut through the moss-covered ground. We'll rest here tonight, he said. Ara nodded. Her feet ached. Her mind buzzed with everything he'd told her. Kale gathered wood without a word. Within minutes, he had a fire crackling between them. Ara sat close to the flames, grateful for the warmth. The night air had turned cold. Are you hungry? Kale asked. She realized she was. A little? He reached into a small pack she hadn't noticed before. He pulled out dried meat and a cloth-wrapped bundle of bread. Simple food. But it was enough. They ate in silence. The fire popped and hissed. Overhead, the stars began to emerge. Ara watched them and thought about everything that had changed in the span of a single day. This morning, she'd been invisible, forgotten. Now she was sitting beside an exiled king who claimed she had Luna blood. It felt impossible. And yet, Kale? She said quietly. He looked up. What happens if the pack rejects me, even after they see the bond? Kale's gaze was steady, unshaken. Then we'll figure it out. Together. Ara didn't know if that was enough. But it was more than she'd had yesterday. She pulled her knees to her chest and stared into the fire. Tomorrow, they would reach the border of his lands. Tomorrow, everything would change again. But tonight, she was safe. Tonight, she wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to keep moving forward. Ara woke to birdsong and the smell of damp earth. The fire had burned down to ash. Gray light filtered through the canopy above. Kale was already awake. He stood at the edge of the clearing, his back to her, watching the forest. She sat up slowly. Her body ached from sleeping on the ground. But the fear that had gripped her last night had softened. Not gone, just quieter. Kale turned when he heard her move. "Morning," he said. His voice was low, calm. "Morning," Ara replied. He crossed to the remains of the fire and kicked dirt over the ashes. "We'll reach the border by midday. After that, it's another hour to the village." Ara nodded. She didn't trust her voice yet. Kale handed her a piece of bread left over from last night. She took it and ate slowly. The silence between them felt different now. Less uncertain. More like understanding. When she finished, Kale shouldered his pack. "Ready?" Ara stood. Her legs were stiff. But she nodded. "Ready." They walked deeper into the forest. The trees grew taller here, thicker. The air smelled of pine and moss. Ara kept her eyes on the ground at first, watching her steps. But after a while, she looked up. The forest was beautiful, alive in a way her village had never been. "Do you miss it?" she asked suddenly. "Your life before the exile?" Kale didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was thoughtful. "I miss the people, my brother, my pack. But the life itself, it was heavy, full of expectation. I was always someone's son, someone's king, never just myself." Ara thought about that. She'd spent her whole life being no one, and he'd spent his being too much. "Do you think you'll ever get that back?" she asked. "The way it was?" Kale shook his head. "No, and I don't think I want to. What I want now is something different, something simpler." "What's that?" He glanced at her. "A place where I'm chosen, not obeyed." Ara's chest tightened. She didn't know what to say to that. They walked on. The path grew narrower, the light dimmer. Ara could feel the forest changing. The air was cooler. The trees stood closer together. "We're near the border," Kale said quietly. Ara felt it before she saw it. A shift in the air. A presence, like invisible eyes watching. Kale stopped. He stood still, his head tilted slightly, listening. Then a low growl rumbled through the trees. Ara's breath caught. She stepped closer to Kale without thinking. A wolf emerged from the underbrush, large, gray. Its eyes were sharp and fixed on Kale. Kale didn't move. He didn't flinch. He just stood there, calm and steady. The wolf circled them slowly. Its gaze flicked to Ara, then back to Kale. "It's all right," Kale murmured. Not to her, to the wolf. The wolf stopped. It held Kale's gaze for a long moment. Then it lowered its head slightly. A gesture Ara didn't fully understand. Kale nodded once. "Thank you." The wolf turned and disappeared into the trees. Ara exhaled shakily. "What just happened?" "That was one of the border patrol," Kale said. "They know we're here now. Word will reach the village before we do." "Is that good?" Kale's mouth tightened. It's necessary. They continued walking. The forest opened up slowly. The trees thinned. Ara could see more sky now, more light. Her heart began to race. She didn't know what waited ahead, but whatever it was close. "Kale," she said softly. "What if they hate me?" He stopped walking. He turned to face her fully. His amber eyes were serious, kind. "They won't hate you," he said, "but they will be afraid. Afraid of change. Afraid of losing what little stability they have left. Fear makes people hard. But it doesn't make them cruel, not unless you let it." Ara wanted to believe him, but doubt curled tight in her stomach. "I don't know how to be what they need," she admitted. "I don't even know what a Luna is supposed to do." Kale stepped closer. Not too close. Just enough that she could feel his presence. Solid. Steady. "A Luna listens," he said quietly. "She cares. She sees the pack not as a unit, but as individuals. That's all. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be present." Ara looked down. Her hands trembled slightly. "I'm not good at being present. I'm good at disappearing." "I know," Kale said gently. "But you're here now. That's what matters." She met his eyes. There was no judgment there, no pressure, just patience. "What if I want to run?" she whispered. Kale didn't smile, but his voice softened. "Then I'll walk with you until you're ready to stop." Something in Ara's chest loosened. Not all the way, but enough. She nodded slowly. "Okay." They walked on. The trees gave way to open land, rolling hills covered in tall grass. In the distance, Ara could see smoke rising from a cluster of buildings. The village. Kale's territory. Her heartbeat quickened. She wanted to stop, to turn back, but Kale's steady pace kept her moving forward. As they drew closer, Ara could make out details. Wooden homes, a large central hall, people moving between buildings, and wolves. Not many, but enough that Ara felt their presence like weight in the air. Kale didn't slow. He walked with purpose, confidence. But Ara noticed the way his shoulders tensed, the way his jaw tightened. He was afraid too, just better at hiding it. They reached the edge of the village. A few people stopped to stare. Ara felt their eyes on her. Curious, wary. Kale didn't acknowledge them. He kept walking toward the central hall. The doors were open. Inside, Ara could hear voices. Low. Serious. Kale paused at the threshold. He glanced at her. "Stay close to me," he said quietly. "Don't speak unless someone asks you a direct question. And don't apologize for being here." Ara swallowed hard. "Okay." Kale stepped inside. Ara followed. The hall was large. Wooden beams stretched overhead. A long table sat in the center. Around it stood a group of men and women. Their faces were hard, their eyes sharp. At the head of the table stood a man with dark hair and a scar across his jaw. His arms were crossed, his expression unreadable. Kale stopped a few paces from the table. "Veyron," he said evenly. The scarred man's gaze flicked to Ara, then back to Kale. "You brought her." "I did." Veyron's mouth tightened. "The council wants answers. Now." Kale didn't flinch. "Then they'll have them." Ara stood behind Kale, her hands clenched at her sides. She could feel every eye in the room on her, judging, questioning. She wanted to disappear, but Kale had told her to stay present. So she stood, silent, steady as she could manage. Veyron stepped forward. His gaze locked on Kale. You were gone 2 years. 2 years, Kale. And you come back with her? His tone wasn't cruel, but it wasn't kind either. Kale's voice was calm, firm. She freed me. She has Luna blood. The bond recognized her. Veyron's eyes narrowed. You expect us to believe that? I expect you to listen, Kale replied, and then decide. The room was silent, tense. Veyron looked at Ara again. This time his gaze lingered, assessing. Ara forced herself to meet his eyes. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stood. After a long moment, Veyron turned back to Kale. The council will hear you. Tonight. Until then, she stays in the hall. Under watch. Kale's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Agreed. Veyron stepped aside. The others followed his lead. Kale turned to Ara. His voice was low. For her alone. It's gonna be all right. Ara wasn't sure she believed him, but she nodded anyway, because she was here now, and there was no going back. The hall emptied slowly. One by one, the council members filed out through the side door. Their footsteps echoed against the stone floor. No one spoke to Ara. No one looked at her directly. She stood near the far wall, her arms wrapped around herself. Kale had been pulled aside by Veyron. They spoke in low tones near the entrance. Ara couldn't hear the words, but she could see the tension in Kale's shoulders, the hard set of Veyron's jaw. She felt small here, out of place, like a piece that didn't fit the pattern. A woman lingered near the door, older, silver threaded through her dark hair. She watched Ara with an expression that wasn't quite hostility, but it wasn't warmth either. Ara met her gaze for a moment, then looked away. The woman left without a word. Ara exhaled slowly. Her chest felt tight. She wanted to ask Kale what would happen next, but he was still deep in conversation, so she waited, silent, trying to steady the tremor in her hands. Finally, Veyron stepped back. He nodded once, then walked toward the side door and disappeared through it. Kale turned and crossed the hall to Ara. His expression was guarded, but his voice was gentle. They'll reconvene at sunset, he said. Until then, we wait. Ara nodded. She didn't trust her voice yet. Kale studied her for a moment, then gestured toward a narrow staircase at the back of the hall. There's a room upstairs. You can rest. I'll be nearby. Will they let me stay? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Kale's gaze softened. That's what tonight is for, to convince them. And if they don't believe you? He was quiet for a beat. Then he said, they will, because it's the Kai or Earth. Ara wanted to believe him, but doubt had settled heavy in her chest. She nodded anyway, because she didn't know what else to do. Kale led her up the stairs. The wood creaked under their feet. At the top was a short hallway. 3 doors. Kale opened the first one. Inside was a small room, a bed, a single window overlooking the village. Simple. Clean. You'll be safe here, Kale said. No one will disturb you. Ara stepped inside. She turned to face him. What will you tell them tonight? The truth, Kale said. That you freed me. That the bond recognized you. that you're Luna." Ara's throat tightened. "I don't feel like a Luna." Kale's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Understanding. Maybe even pain. "You will," he said quietly. "In time." Ara wasn't sure she believed that, but she nodded. Kale hesitated in the doorway. Then he said, "Try to rest. Tonight will be long." He left before she could reply. The door closed softly behind him. Ara stood in the center of the room, alone. The silence pressed in around her. She crossed to the window and looked out. The village stretched below. People moved through the streets, going about their lives. None of them knew her. None of them wanted her here. She thought of the forest, the wolf, the way his amber eyes had locked on hers, the way the chains had fallen away under her hands. She'd thought that moment was the hardest part, breaking him free. But this was harder, because now she had to convince strangers she belonged, and she wasn't sure she could. Ara sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands were still shaking. She pressed them together in her lap, tried to breathe, tried to think, but all she could feel was the weight of doubt, heavy, unrelenting. She didn't know how long she sat there. Minutes, maybe longer. The light from the window shifted. The afternoon stretched on. She heard footsteps in the hall once, then silence again. Eventually, she lay back on the bed, stared at the ceiling, tried to quiet her mind. But the questions kept coming. What if they rejected her? What if Kale couldn't convince them? What if she wasn't enough? She closed her eyes, let the exhaustion pull her under. Just for a little while. When she woke, the light had changed, softer, golden. The sun was lower now. Ara sat up slowly. Her body felt heavy. Her mind still clouded with worry. She stood and crossed to the window again. Below, people were gathering near the hall, more than before. Their voices drifted up, low, indistinct. A knock sounded at the door. Ara turned. Her pulse quickened. "Come in," she said. The door opened. Kale stepped inside. He looked tired, but his gaze was steady. "It's time," he said. Ara's stomach twisted. She nodded, smoothed her hands down her dress, tried to look braver than she felt. Kale crossed the room. He stopped in front of her. His hand lifted, hesitated, then gently touched her shoulder. "You don't have to be perfect," he said quietly. "You just have to be honest." Ara looked up at him, met his eyes. She wanted to ask him if that would be enough, but she didn't, because she wasn't sure she wanted to hear the answer. Instead, she nodded. "Okay." Kale's hand dropped. He stepped back. "Stay close to me. Let me speak first. If they ask you something directly, answer simply. Don't try to explain more than they ask." "All right." He turned toward the door. Ara followed. Her legs felt unsteady, but she kept moving. Down the stairs, through the hall. The main doors were open now. Outside, the village had gathered. Men, women, even a few children at the edges. All watching, all waiting. The council stood near the center, Veyron at the front, his expression unreadable. The silver-haired woman was there too. and others Ara didn't recognize. Their faces hard, their eyes sharp. Kale stepped into the open space. Ara stayed at his side. The crowd parted slightly. Whispers rippled through them. Low. Wary. Veyron raised a hand. The murmurs died. He looked at Kale. Then at Ara. Then back to Kale. "You've asked us to hear you," Veyron said. His voice carried across the clearing. "We're listening." Kale's voice was calm, strong. 2 years ago I was cursed, bound in silver, left in the forest to die. You all know this. You saw me fall. No one spoke, but heads nodded, some reluctant, some pained. The curse could only be broken by someone with Luna blood, Kale continued. Someone the bond recognized. I searched. I waited. And then she found me. He gestured toward Ara. Every eye turned to her. Ara's breath caught. But she didn't look away. She broke the chains, Kale said. She freed me. The bond claimed her the moment the silver fell. I didn't choose her because I wanted to. I'm here because the bond knew her before I did. Veyron's gaze was hard. And we're supposed to accept that? A stranger from a village that doesn't even know what she is? Kale didn't flinch. Yes, because it's the truth. The silver-haired woman stepped forward. Her voice was quieter, but no less firm. How do we know the bond is real? How do we know she isn't just someone you brought back out of desperation? Ara's chest tightened. She looked at Kale. He met her eyes. Then he turned back to the woman. Because I feel it, he said simply. Every moment, every breath, the bond is there. And if you give her time, you'll feel it too. Veyron's jaw tightened. He looked at Ara again. This time he spoke directly to her. Do you understand what he's asking? What it means to be Luna? Ara's mouth was dry, but she forced herself to speak. No, not entirely, but I'm willing to learn. Veyron's eyes narrowed. And if we refuse you? If we say you're not enough? Ara's heart hammered, but she held his gaze. Then I'll leave, because I won't force myself on people who don't want me. The silence that followed was sharp, heavy. Kale's hand brushed hers, brief, steadying. Veyron looked at the council, then at the crowd. His expression didn't soften, but something shifted in his eyes, something Ara couldn't name. We'll decide tonight, he said finally. Until then, you both stay here, under watch. Kale inclined his head. Understood. The crowd began to disperse. Slowly, reluctantly. Ara stood still, her heart still racing. Kale turned to her. His voice was low. For her alone. You did well. Ara wasn't sure she believed him, but she nodded, because the hardest part was still ahead. The council room emptied slowly. Voices faded into the night. Ara stood at the center of the clearing, her hands folded in front of her, unsure where to go or what to do next. Kale remained beside her, silent, his presence steady. She wanted to ask him what would happen if the council refused her, if they decided she wasn't enough. But the words stuck in her throat. Veyron was the last to leave. He paused at the edge of the clearing, his gaze lingering on Ara for a long moment. Then he turned and disappeared into the shadows. Kale exhaled quietly. He glanced down at her. Come with me. Ara nodded. She didn't know where he was leading her. But she followed. They walked through the village in silence, past low wooden homes with carved doorways, past fire pits where embers still glowed. The air smelled of pine and smoke, and something earthy Ara couldn't name. No one stopped them, but she felt eyes watching from windows. from doorways. Curiosity, suspicion, maybe both. Kale led her to the far edge of the village, past the last cluster of homes. The trees opened up into a wide overlook. The ground sloped gently downward, revealing a valley bathed in moonlight. The forest stretched endlessly below, dark and alive. Ara stopped at the edge, her breath caught. It was beautiful. Kale stood beside her, his hands rested at his sides. He didn't speak right away, he just stood there, looking out over the valley. Ara's chest tightened. The silence between them was heavy, but not uncomfortable. Finally, she spoke. Her voice was quiet. "Do you think they'll accept me?" Kale didn't answer immediately. When he did, his voice was honest. "I don't know." Ara's heart sank, but she nodded. She appreciated that he didn't lie to her. "Veyron is cautious," Kale continued. "He has to be. The pack has been through too much. They're afraid of losing more." Ara swallowed. "And I'm a risk." Kale turned to face her. His amber eyes were steady. "You're not a risk. You're a question they don't have an answer to yet." Ara looked down at her hands. "I don't know how to prove myself to them. I don't know how to be what they need." "You don't have to prove anything," Kale said gently. "Not tonight." Ara's throat tightened. "But what if I can't? What if I'm never enough?" Kale was quiet for a moment. Then he stepped closer, not crowding her, just nearer. "You freed me," he said softly. "When no one else could. You didn't know me. You didn't know what I was. But you broke the chains anyway." Ara looked up at him. Her eyes stung. "That wasn't about being enough," Kale continued. "That was about who you are. And who you are is exactly what I need." Ara's breath hitched. She wanted to believe him, but the weight of the council's doubt pressed down on her like a stone. "I've never belonged anywhere," she whispered. "Not really. My village. They tolerated me, but they never wanted me. I was always too quiet, too strange, too much alone." Kale's expression softened. "I know what that feels like." Ara blinked. "You do?" He nodded slowly. "I was alpha. But I was also alone. The bond, it's supposed to complete you. But I never felt it. Not until the curse. Not until I was trapped in that clearing, waiting for someone who might never come." Ara's heart ached. She could hear the loneliness in his voice, the weight of it. "I don't want you to feel that way here," Kale said quietly. "I don't want you to think you have to earn a place. You already have one. With me." Ara's eyes filled with tears. She looked away, embarrassed. Kale didn't push. He just waited. "I'm afraid," Ara admitted, her voice cracked. "I'm afraid I'll fail, that I'll let you down, that the bond made a mistake." Kale's hand reached out slowly. He touched her chin. Gently. Just enough to guide her gaze back to his. "The bond didn't make a mistake," he said. His voice was firm, certain. "And neither did I." Ara's breath shook. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that this wasn't temporary, that she wouldn't wake up tomorrow and find herself alone again. "I can't promise the council will accept you immediately," Kale said, "but I can promise that I will stand beside you. Every step, every doubt, every hard moment. You won't face this alone." Ara's chest tightened. The warmth in his voice settled over her like a blanket. "I'm not asking you to be perfect," Kale continued. "I'm just asking you to try, to be here, to let me know you. and to let the pack see who you really are." Ara's tears spilled over. She wiped them away quickly. But Kale didn't look away. He didn't flinch. "I don't know how to be Luna," Ara whispered. "Neither did I when I became Alpha," Kale said. A faint smile touched his lips. "But I learned, and so will you." Ara exhaled slowly. The fear was still there, but something else was growing beneath it. Something small, fragile, but real. Hope. "Will you stay with me tonight?" she asked quietly. I don't want to be alone." Kale's expression softened. "I'm not going anywhere." Ara nodded. Relief flooded through her. She looked back out over the valley. The moonlight painted everything silver. The trees swayed gently in the breeze. Kale stood beside her, close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Close enough that she didn't feel quite so small. "I've never seen anything like this," Ara said softly. "It's beautiful." Kale followed her gaze. "It's home." Ara's heart ached at the word. Home. She'd never had one. Not really. But standing here, with Kale beside her and the valley, stretching out below, she could almost imagine what it might feel like. "I want to try," she said quietly. "I want to be what you need, what they need. I need time." "You'll have it," Kale promised, "as much as you need." Ara turned to face him fully. His amber eyes were steady, patient, kind. "Thank you," she whispered. Kale's hand reached out again. This time, he took hers. His fingers were warm, steady. The touch sent a small pulse of warmth through her chest. The bond. She could feel it now. Faint, but present. "You're not alone anymore," Kale said softly. "Remember that." Ara nodded. She squeezed his hand gently. "I'll try." Kale smiled. It was small, but real. "That's all I ask." They stood there together in the moonlight. The valley stretched out before them. The forest whispered around them. And for the first time since Ara had broken the chains, she felt something other than fear. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she could belong. Kale led her back toward the village eventually. The night was deep, the stars bright. He brought her to a small cabin at the edge of the clearing. Quiet, private. "You'll stay here tonight," he said. "I'll be just outside if you need me." Ara hesitated. "You don't have to." "I want to," Kale interrupted gently. "You're not alone. I meant that." Ara's throat tightened. She nodded. "Okay." Kale stepped back. He gave her one last look, steady, reassuring. Then he turned and walked to the edge of the porch. Ara stepped inside. The cabin was simple. A bed, a table, a small fire already burning in the hearth. She sat on the edge of the bed. Her hands trembled slightly, but the fear was quieter now, softer. Outside, she could hear Kale settling onto the porch, his presence a quiet reassurance. Ara lay down slowly. She pulled the blanket over herself. Her eyes drifted closed. And for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel alone. Ara woke to the sound of birdsong and the soft crackle of the fire. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then the memories returned. The wolf, Kale, the pack, the overlook. She sat up slowly. Her chest felt lighter than it had in days. The bond was still there. Faint, warm, steady. Outside, she heard voices. Low, calm. She recognized Kale's. She rose and moved to the door. When she opened it, she found him standing with Veyron. Both men turned to look at her. Kale's expression softened immediately. "You're awake." "I am," Aura said quietly. She stepped onto the porch. The morning air was cool, fresh. She wrapped her arms around herself. Veyron studied her for a long moment. His face was unreadable. Then he nodded once. "Alpha, I'll gather the council." He glanced at Aura. "Luna." The title felt strange, heavy, but not unwelcome. Aura nodded back. Veyron turned and walked toward the village center. Kale moved closer. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I expected," Aura admitted. "You stayed out here all night?" "I did," Kale smiled faintly. "I told you I would." Aura's throat tightened. "Thank you." Kale's gaze held hers. "Today is the ceremony, if you're ready." Aura's heart quickened. The ceremony. The claiming. She'd agreed to it. She wanted it. But the weight of it still pressed against her chest. "I'm nervous," she said honestly. "That's natural," Kale said gently. "But you won't be alone. I'll be with you. Every step." Aura took a slow breath. She nodded. "Okay, I'm ready." Kale's expression warmed. He reached out and took her hand. His fingers were steady, reassuring. "Then, let's begin." He led her through the village. The pack was already gathering. Men and women stood in quiet clusters. Their eyes followed Aura as she passed. Some looked curious, others skeptical. A few smiled gently. Aura kept her chin up. She held Kale's hand tightly. He walked beside her with calm confidence. His presence grounded her. They reached the center of the clearing. A stone circle had been laid out beneath the trees. The council stood at the edge, Veyron among them. Kale guided Aura into the center of the circle. He released her hand and turned to face the council. "We gather here under the moon's witness," Kale said. His voice carried across the clearing. "I stand before you as your alpha, and I bring before you the woman I have chosen as Luna." Veyron stepped forward. His expression was serious but not unkind. "Aura, you have been brought to us as the one who freed our alpha from his chains. We honor that act, but being Luna requires more than a single choice. It requires trust, loyalty, and a bond that cannot be broken." Aura's pulse quickened. She met Veyron's gaze steadily. "I understand." "Do you accept this bond willingly?" Veyron asked. "Do you consent to stand as Luna beside our alpha?" Aura's breath caught. The weight of the question settled over her. She glanced at Kale. His amber eyes were steady, patient, waiting. She thought of the overlook, the conversation they'd shared, the promise he'd made. She thought of the warmth in her chest, the bond that had begun to grow. "I do," Aura said clearly. "I accept this bond willingly." A ripple of murmurs passed through the gathered pack. Veyron nodded slowly. He stepped back. "Then we witness." Kale moved closer. He stood directly in front of Aura. His gaze held hers. "Are you sure?" he asked softly. "Once this is done, the bond will be complete. There's no undoing it." Aura's heart pounded. But the fear was quieter now, softer. I'm sure. Kale's expression softened. He reached up and gently cupped her face. His thumb brushed her cheek. Thank you, he whispered, for trusting me. Ara's eyes stung. She leaned into his touch. Thank you for waiting. Kale smiled. Then he leaned in. His forehead rested against hers. The bond flared between them. Warm, bright, real. I'll be gentle, Kale murmured. I promise. Ara nodded. She felt his hand slide to the side of her neck. His thumb traced the curve of her jaw. Then he tilted her head slightly to the side. His breath was warm against her skin. Are you ready? He asked quietly. Yes, Ara whispered. Kale's lips brushed her throat. A soft kiss, tender. Then she felt the faint pressure of his teeth. Not harsh, not painful. Just enough to mark her, to claim her. The bond surged. A rush of warmth spread through her chest, down her arms, through her entire body. Ara gasped softly. Her hands gripped Kale's shoulders. He held her steady, his touch firm but gentle. When he pulled back, his eyes glowed faintly, amber and bright. He brushed his thumb over the mark he'd left. It's done. Ara touched her neck gently. The skin was warm, tender, but it didn't hurt. It felt right. The pack began to murmur again. This time, the sound was different, softer, accepting. Veyron stepped forward again. He knelt slowly, his head bowed. Luna. One by one, the council followed. They knelt in the grass, their heads bowed in respect. Ara's breath caught. Tears pricked her eyes. Kale took her hand again. He squeezed gently. They accept you. Ara's throat tightened. She looked out at the kneeling pack, at the faces turned toward her, some still uncertain, but many warm, welcoming. Thank you, she said softly, her voice trembled. I promise I'll do my best. I'll learn, and I'll stand beside you all. Veyron rose first. He met Ara's gaze. We'll teach you, Luna. You're one of us now. Ara nodded. She felt the bond settle deeper into her chest. Steady, warm, unbreakable. Kale turned her to face him again. His hand cupped her cheek. How do you feel? Ara smiled. It was small, but real. Like I belong. Kale's expression softened. He leaned in and kissed her forehead gently. You do. The pack began to disperse slowly. Conversations returned. Laughter echoed softly through the clearing. Kale kept Ara close, his hand steady on hers. As the sun climbed higher, Ara felt the weight in her chest lighten even more. The fear was still there. But it was quieter now. Softer. Manageable. She looked up at Kale. His amber eyes were warm. Kind. Patient. What happens now? She asked quietly. Kale smiled. Now we learn. Together. Ara nodded. She squeezed his hand. I'd like that. Kale led her back toward the cabin. The pack watched them go. Some nodded. Others smiled. Ara felt their eyes on her. But the weight of it didn't feel heavy anymore. It felt like home. When they reached the cabin, Kale turned to face her. You were brave today. Ara shook her head. I was terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. Kale said gently. It's moving forward despite it. You did that. Ara's eyes stung again. She stepped closer. Kale wrapped his arms around her. She rested her forehead against his chest. The bond hummed softly between them, warm, steady, real. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" Kale asked. "For being patient. For waiting. For everything." Kale's arms tightened around her. "You're worth waiting for." Aura closed her eyes. For the first time in her life, she believed it. They stood there together in the morning light. The pack moved around them. The forest whispered softly. And Aura finally understood what it meant to be home. The council doors closed behind them as Veyron gave one final nod of acceptance. Aura felt the bond settle fully into place, warm and unshakable. She was Luna now. She was home. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love for you to join us again.